Anybody from floor? Yes, sure. And, okay.
From National Maritime Foundation. First of all, I totally agree with Ambassador Yogendra Kumar's comment that maritime connectivity is beyond, I mean, blue economy is beyond maritime connectivity. Towards this, there were one comment by Mr. Nogen who brought out that we have to worry about marine pollution, particularly in the port. I feel that it should be beyond the port. Towards this, the IMO had come out with regional sea program, and Vietnam is part of it in the East Asia regional sea program. India is part of the South Asia program. There is a need to integrate, to harmonize this. For this, probably India-ASEAN workshop can help. That's my comment. And for Dr. Prabir Dey, he brought out that there are shipping standards which internationally people are following. Lloyd's. Of course, Lloyd's has one standard. There is ABS, and in India we follow IRS. IMO has mandated the voluntary IMO audit scheme, VIMSA, and which has now been replaced with the III code. I think ASEAN-India workshop can help in, most of these conventions are not been signed by the member states. So probably this workshop can help in the member countries to help in signing these conventions, or if there are any difficulties in signing them, what are the apprehensions, that can be probably taken up to IMO for a uniform standards of shipping. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we collect more questions if there's any? Maybe from other countries like Philippines or Malaysia? Maybe not now. Okay, let us have the response from the Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you for your comment. I think it is a very good comment. You have to harmonize some activity in this area and in the ASEAN and the South China Sea region to achieve the more efficient of the cooperation. And I think I am interested in the maritime connectivity in the context of blue economy. So it means I focus more the aspect of the marine environment, marine resources, maintaining regarding to the maritime connectivity. So is it my topic? So thank you very much for your comment.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Dr. Prabir, you can respond.
Quickly. Actually, you have raised three questions in the. So one of it was with connectivity, particularly in the Bay of Bengal countries. And in my presentation, I talked about slightly briefly, but in the maritime connectivity in the BIMSTEC countries, first member states are negotiating agreement, which is called BIMSTEC Coastal Shipping Agreement. They are coming up with another regional agreement, which is being drafted and placed on the table by Bangladesh. It's called BIMSTEC Trade Facilitation Agreement. Plus, some discussion is happening about creating a fund to support the ports and shipping in the Bay of Bengal. Regarding so it is all about the short sea shipping, and in context of short sea shipping, countries are coming up with some, innovative ideas of relaxing the cabotage, inviting third countries, member states to be part of it, some bilateral arrangements. These are being under discussion stage. Regarding the Sabang Island, which is purely strategic, if we understand, some papers which are early papers which just came out, because Sabang Island agreement was signed when the PM Modi visited Indonesia recently. But that's purely strategic, but whether it will be commercial, because that part is tsunami prone, it is about earthquake-prone areas, investments for the commercial parts. Maybe we need to have more discussions. But certainly, we have been telling that Indonesia, the Aceh province, and those Sumatras, those parts should be taken on board with Bay of Bengal. That we are presently discussed, and your points about it's good comments, suggestions. We should bring it in the summary, and if you take any new proposals under blue economy in the ASEAN-India, we should have more discussions on it. Yeah.
Actually, I actually rather have a question for him. Can you be a little more specific and more granular as to what are the issues which require to be coordinated between the IMO's Southeast Asia Sea program and South Asia program? What kind of issues, practical difficulties you find? Thank you.
IMO's regional sea program is basically mandating the regional countries, the littoral countries, to develop a standard operating procedure in an event of environmental disaster, be it by pollution from a ship or otherwise. So while it has worked in the regional sea program with the littorals, but between the littorals, there is no harmonization. Like India stands at the cusp of South Asia and East Asia. So what happens during if there is a environmental damage of east of the Andaman Sea? Who will draft out the SOP for that? We have one for the South Asia. We have one for East Asia. So this area is a gray area. That's where the ASEAN and India cooperation comes in. So the model is already existing with East Asia program and the South Asia program. All what is required is probably the harmonization and drafting out a SOP between the ASEAN country and probably India in particular. And towards this, India has got expertise in it because the Satellite Application Center of ISRO have got data available, and they have the wherewithal to find out the sensitive area which are environmentally sensitive, which probably can be used by the workshop for writing or articulating the SOP. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Thank you. Ambassador, you have some response? Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. And let us come to from the floor, please.
Good afternoon to the panel and everyone present here. I have a question for Mr. Prabir De. I'm from National Maritime Foundation. I have a question for Mr. Prabir De and Mr. Kumar. So I noticed that you talked about trade barriers that India and these other countries are facing. And I understand that trade, especially for the blue economy to work properly and for the maritime connectivity, trade is a very important aspect to be invested in and to be promoted. So the trade barriers that India is facing in the form of tariffs and other, I think, duties from countries like the US and other factors, how do we could you please summarize how we can get around this and still propagate our trade and our connectivity in turn? So my question is, what is the solution to this problem?
Thank you. Dr. Prabir, would you like? And thank you very much. If there is any more questions from the floor, we can collect. Yeah. Otherwise, response from the Dr.
Quickly, maybe we can discuss bilaterally. These are something slightly different than the discussion that we have during the lunch and break. That much I can tell. There is no way out because, trade war game, it continues until the big guys, if they don't stop. So that much I can do. Thank you very much.
I think this is a good point, but perhaps a barrier may not be the right expression in my view, because we still are in the process of setting up the system in place. As I mentioned, India and ASEAN have an FTA in goods, but whilst the FTA in service investment has actually been signed by all the countries, some countries have not yet ratified it. They are going through their own internal processes. So I think once that happens, in that case, the kind of issues that you have in your mind, I think by and large they would be assuaged and they will be resolved, because as I said, for the development of cooperation, the blue economy sector and the maritime connectivity, I think FTA in service investment is very critical, because a lot of it is services and we are talking about investment. So in fact, since morning we've been discussing about the huge ambitious program that India has and the ASEAN countries have. Also the Japan-India growth corridor from South Asia to Africa. So a whole lot of these programs will certainly get a boost once this particular FTA actually comes into operation. And our CEP is another area or another track, which once it actually comes to fruition, then a lot of these issues will get resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Can we also hear some views from our fellows from Vietnam or Thailand, Cambodia, Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, in this case? Your views, your thoughts, your questions, your comments, please do so. Or you would like to add something from your country experience in this connectivity?
Integrate coastal management?
Yes, that's right, Ambassador. Allow me to add some more information, findings that we did when we did the research on this maritime connectivity in select Asian countries, especially in Indonesia and surrounding. If you follow the news on Indonesia, that our president focusing on maritime connectivity, maritime nexus between eastern part and western part of Indonesia. As we know that the eastern part of Indonesia is less developed compared to the western part of Indonesia, but it's fundamental challenges in many aspects of developing Indonesia, because Java Island is whose area is less than 10% of the total Indonesia, is inhabited by half of the population in Indonesia. So this island generates about 50% of GDP, all the economic activities, money circulated in these islands, big cities, and leave other islands or the rest of Indonesia lag behind. So when we did some surveys, for example, the shipping lines from the Java Island to the eastern part of Indonesia, one port in East Java, Tanjung Mas, when the ship depart from this port, bring goods to be unloaded in several areas in the middle and the eastern part of Indonesia. They have a high demand to do this, the forward the things, the goods, the commodities to the eastern part. But when the ship goes back to goes empty, so it makes the logistics cost very expensive. But that's not the only the challenge that Indonesia is facing now. Like Ambassador Yogendra just mentioned, the connectivity between the ports and hinterland is equally important. But less attention paid for this the whole system. What we found that it's not only, I think, in Indonesia, but also in Philippines. We also did the research in Philippines, industrial zone and firm levels, and we found that there is a lack of coordination and harmonization between the national logistics systems and the national transportation master plan of national transportation in these countries. That's why it's when the issues come like dwelling time in the port, it's easy to tackle. But what happened after the container release from the port? They stuck in the middle of the roads, and it's not. Yeah, I think the countries in Asia now working hard towards these issues, but and it also shows that the domestic connectivity should be clear and should be addressed. The problem should be addressed first in the domestic area before we can really move towards